Many of the people that I see have a very, very good experience of the hospital, and they're very, very, very grateful for everything that's done. The ones who do best, I think, are the ones who have a good command of English.
So why should we treat refugees and asylum seekers any different from any other foreigner seeking treatment?
I think that the people that I see who are mostly refugees and asylum seekers, have had a very difficult time in their own country, which is why they've fled their own country. They often have an extremely difficult journey here. Many of them will have been tortured, and in some countries, doctors are used in the torture process. They will come and examine somebody and say whether they are able to be tortured more. And so obviously this is a distortion of what we consider to be a healthy doctor-patient relationship. Also, instances where people are tortured with electricity, and even something like an ECG will bring back memories of that electric torture. And often people have very complex needs. Maybe they haven't seen a doctor for a long time. They have psychological problems because of what they've been through. They're in a highly anxious state when they eventually see someone at hospital.
So to start with, is my brother. I brought him from Jordan under the UN protection. This is the first things I have to mention. He's double amputee. He was buried alive before. He was tortured quite a lot. There is an evidence on all his body. And when he was in the hospital, I tried to explain things, but because people keep changing, there is no specific treatment for him or a special treatment. They treat him like a normal patient, like even the British patient, which I appreciate that, but he came to a different country, to different language, to a different environment, different everything, but no one understands that, or no one even think about it. They have to understand it in a way he needs more than what we thought.
I think often language clearly can be a barrier to start with. People don't know how to sort of navigate their way through services if they're not able to understand or communicate or read the information that they're given about their schedule of appointments, etc. That's one factor I think that probably keeps people away. There is also, they're not aware that maternity services are essential services. That's any antenatal care, labour care, postnatal, those things are all essential services, so they are entitled to them at the point of care, and they may not access them because they then fear receiving bills for that service. And that can lead to all sorts of other problems. If we have women coming in booking late for antenatal care, they don't come in, we miss that opportunity to pick up things like gestational diabetes or things that are screened for early on in the pregnancy. And then that can cause problems later on. It can cause issues for them, and it can cause more expensive scenarios for the NHS to have to pick up on later on. Because there are situations where women can then be billed for emergency sections or any care that they've received. And if those debts are left unpaid, the Overseas Visitors Service have an obligation then to keep the Home Office involved about the status of those women. And obviously that is a bit of a catch-22 situation there, because then that can affect their further applications for asylum, their status, and burdened with bills that they're not in a position to pay.
All asylum seekers live with the fear of being sent back to the country of origin, and many refugees too, because you're only now given refugee status for 5 years, then you have to renew.
We had a client, she came recently to the UK and she was still asylum seeker. She went to the NA, took her son who was having fever. For someone who's coming from Africa, they are very worried because it might be a dengue fever. They asked for her passport. She didn't have any passport. She gave them her ID, but they didn't accept the ID.
The GP refers my mom to the hospital, and we received a letter, and the back of the letter they said, if you need an interpreter you have to call us. I called them to the hospital and asked them to book the interpreter for my mom. And when she arrived in a hospital at the right time, they said, we haven't booked the interpreter for you because we haven't found the right languages for you. That's why doctor didn't see her, and they said you have to come back with a rebook appointment. And they rebook an appointment because of the NHS. It's really busy, and they booked for 6 months later, and she still kept with the problem. And after 6 months, she back to the hospital with the interpreter. But the problem for my mom, it was really serious, and because they had to be an emergency operation to stomach.
I come from Syria 2 years ago. My family came to UK last year. I have 7 children. I'm disabled. I have 55 shrapnel in my body, and there's a very big injury in my back. Sometimes I can't walk. I need a wheelchair to help me for move. And I have to go to hospital to do physiotherapy and to book appointment for myself and for my wife and for my children. And I have to go with them just for translate. Sometimes I can't go at all. Sometimes I cancel appointment for my family. I don't know what I have to do when this happened to me.
Why don't you get an interpreter?
Actually, I try to ask them for interpreter, but actually I'm not comfortable and I'm not trust for these people. I need someone professional. Yeah, and sometimes when I ask them to book interpreter, it take long time to book this appointment. Maybe more than 3, 4, 6 months sometimes. Yeah.
So I can tell you my story.
Yeah.
We had a baby stillborn last year in December, and since that time we did like lots of appointment with the consultant to prove us what the reason make baby die, and all the time they was getting interpreter for us. He wasn't really like educated to do this kind of things, because every time doctors is saying something, he need to translate it using Google Translator. So I can do it myself. You don't have to bring me like interpreter to do that for me.
I asked them actually about the translator because they told me I'm not allowed to translate for him. You are a part of the family, so we want to understand from him. He cannot say anything at that time. He couldn't say anything and he don't want to say anything. When he saw some people trying to talk to him, he telling me that you are not my sister, you brought the police again to me. Do you want them to take me again to put me in a grave? They put me twice in a grave for 9 days. So when he's in the hospital, I ask them not to bring an Iraqi because he's scared. He's just put like, you know, blind. And even when he transfer, and they should put this notes in his file that it's not supposed to spoken to Iraqis, still they sent him an Iraqi people.
So we've just had some really distressing situations where good quality interpreting can make such a difference. So it's really important that NHS staff are really aware of a person's needs and that they identify them as soon as possible. It's important to check what their preferred language is, and as we've heard, we should not make any assumptions about that. It's really important as well that the interpreter is qualified and medically trained in interpreting. One of the most important things that we need to consider is that family and staff and friends are also not used as an interpreter or not asked to interpret, because we can't guarantee that the conversation won't be affected by their interpretation or really key information missed out. But also, can you imagine how difficult it might be for a child or a partner to say to somebody that they might not survive treatment or that they're being given a cancer diagnosis? So we have so many things to consider when we're planning interpreting. Again, really important that we use qualified medical interpreters.
Many of the people that I see have a very, very good experience of the hospital, and they're very, very, very grateful for everything that's done.